A24 has garnered a reputation for putting out some of the best prestige films of the last few years. But is that reputation earned? That's what we're going to find out. It's May 24, baby. 24 A24 films reviewed during the month of May. Every day I'm going to take a look at a new A24 film here on the channel. Why May 24? Because A24 sounds kind of like May 24, which is a Canadian federal holiday. Technically, it's Victoria Day, after Queen Victoria, but we don't like to talk about her on account of all the colonialism, even though we do celebrate her birthday every year. Canada, don't ask me about my racism, but we just call it May 24 because it lands kind of close to the weekend closest to May the 24th. Anyways, this arbitrary occasion felt like the perfect time to watch some A24 flicks. So what even is an A24? While A24 does produce a lot of their hit films, a lot of the time they act as a distributor, meaning that they buy a movie that's already finished and then help it get into theaters. In that, they kind of function as like a film curator, taking chances on weird or strange movies that are too unconventional for traditional Hollywood. Whenever you see those flickering white letters, you know you're about to see some serious shit. I've been a fan of A24 for a while now, from some of their earlier horror stuff to more recently when they've expanded to larger projects, bigger budgets, and a wider variety of genre. And they put out a ton of great films from some of my favorite working directors. But I'm always searching for my next favorite movie, so please leave your recommendations in the comments. Give me your obscure picks, not just the A24 starter pack. I'm looking for hidden gems, not uncut gems. I'll leave a full playlist of every video in the description. Please subscribe so you don't miss out. And yeah, let's get into it because May 24 starts now. How to Make a Killing, directed by John Patton Ford and starring Glenn Powell. This is based on a book and it shows just in sort of the vibe. It's about an obscure heir to an extremely wealthy family fortune who would be set to inherit all of it if only all the other members of the family conveniently died first. I like this one. I thought it was pretty fun. Glenn Powell's in a ton of movies these days, and sometimes used effectively. I think this role works for him. He's a little bit morally ambiguous, but almost plays things close to the chest in a way that kind of makes the viewer imprint whatever you want to feel onto him, and I think that kind of works. Margaret Qualley's in this one and plays this morally ambiguous femme fatale, and she's excellent as usual. Jessica Henwick was a nice surprise as well. Friggin' Daughter of the Dragon. She should be in more stuff. She's great. I would have liked to see a little more from some of the different members of this family that he's killing off, like Topher Grace as this morally questionable religious leader who's a lot of fun. Best use of Reliant K in a movie since the VeggieTales soundtrack. Would have loved to see more of him. And I like that this one wasn't afraid to have a dark ending. Sometimes that's needed for the story you're telling. And yeah, just well made overall. There's some nice cinematography and symbolism with various characters feeling trapped, represented by the use of prison bars or gate bars, and who feels trapped when changes at different points throughout the story. Simple stuff like that, but it's good. It's done well. Pretty good. I liked it. Check it out. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, directed by Mary Bronstein and starring Rose Byrne. Kind of a perfect little film. This one's great. It's about a mother just going through a real tough time of it. Everything seems to be falling apart in her life, symbolized beautifully by this hole in her ceiling that's leaking water into her apartment. Just this dark black hole that seems to be ever expanding. This movie does a lot of really interesting things, like we barely even show her daughter on screen despite her being a main character, to show how distracted and distant Rose Byrne is feeling. Conan O'Brien plays her therapist and he's kind of an asshole. There's this great scene where he tells this story about a rat and you think it's gonna have some kind of moral or message, but then it kind of just doesn't. We find out she's a therapist as well, which has this beautiful irony to it. because she's trying to give people advice while her own life is like falling apart. There's this really interesting theme about motherhood and this motif that comes up a few times throughout the movie of like mothers or mother type figures either abandoning their children or feeling like they're not equipped to take care of their kids. And Rose Byrne is having some of these dark feelings as well. Conan O'Brien is great in this movie. He plays what seems like is just such an asshole, but at the same time I think he's kind of interesting and maybe trying to have some kind of point, where like Rose Byrne keeps coming back to speaking about her problems in therapy with Conan's character, and she keeps being like, what do I do? Tell me what to do. And he is kind of like dismissive of her. And at first you're like, wow, what a dick. But I think it's also like he's trying to tell her like, hey, you know all the things, like you're also a therapist. You know all the things I'm going to say. Why do you keep coming back to me? And I think it's like she's looking for an excuse or someone to blame. There's a lot of themes about control and who's in control and feeling out of control, trying to regain control. Really great performances, really a complicated, messy, extremely flawed character wrestling with some really dark feelings. And the movie just really sits in and almost relishes making you feel uncomfortable. There's this image towards the end where Rose Byrne is almost trying to, like, what comes off to me as her trying to remove an umbilical cord, which is a fascinating symbol and image. The thing that tethers you to your child and keeps them alive, but there's something about it that she just finds draining, and she wants to, like, remove that tether, but also that's part of letting your child, you know, grow into themselves. I don't know. There's a lot of really interesting themes of motherhood and darker, uncomfortable feelings that aren't often talked about. Made me feel icky. Excellent film. Highly recommend. Beau is Afraid, directed by Ari Aster and starring Joaquin Phoenix. You ever have a anxiety dream where you're like late for school and you have a test and you have a study and you forgot your pants, and then like you get stabbed in the hand by a naked man? That's pretty much what this movie feels like. It's very abstract, very surreal, almost a manifestation of anxiety and fear. Beau is afraid, and boy, the world he lives in sure is scary. There are so many things to be afraid of. Ari Aster, of course, directed Hereditary and Midsommar, which I thought were both fantastic horror movies. This one maybe has some horror elements, but is much stranger and more unique and harder to define genre-wise. There are some parts that are kind of funny, but overall it's very much its own unique thing. Definitely a departure from more mainstream horror, and this movie is definitely not going to work for everyone, but I kind of appreciate it for taking such a big swing, for having such commitment to its own ideas. It's almost like bottled anxiety. It takes every possible thing that could go wrong and has them go wrong. What if you leave your door unlocked? Some crazy person might go get into your apartment. But yeah, that happens. It's every possible anxiety, from a crazy murderer is on the loose to teenage girl is bullying you into taking drugs. The movie has a very like dreamlike quality to it. Everything is very surreal. There's like even an extended, partly animated sequence, and it has a strange story structure that flows in the same way that a dream might, which is where you like go from place to place and there's like loose tangential connections, but also not everything really makes any sense. And that's sort of the feeling that this movie captures. Not everything always makes sense, but there is some thematic consistency, and we do learn more about Beau as a character as the movie goes on. He's got a ton of mommy issues, which could probably contributes to his anxiety. The movie is a little long at about 3 hours, and because the structure is kind of strange, it doesn't always feel like it's going in a clear direction, and so sometimes the pacing can feel a little bit strange, and maybe it's a bit too long overall, since there's some sequences that are like feel a little more tangential to whatever the main story is, if you can call it that. This one's not going to work for everyone, but I kind of liked it because it was very unique and very unafraid to tell the story that it wanted to in the way that it wanted to. And I appreciate that. I appreciate a big swing, and that's kind of the stuff you often get from A24. It's something that just feels very different from everything else you've seen. So I say check it out. Yeah, that's this one. A Ghost Story, written and directed by David Lowery, starring Casey Affleck and the girl. The fuck is her name? She's in Social Network. She's got a sister, Rooney Mara. I found it. And Rooney Mara. It's a ghost story, baby, just say yes. This is the kind of A24 bullshit that in high school I probably would have said was boring and pretentious, but in college I would have been like, ooh, this is artsy and brilliant. Now I say it's pretty good. So Casey Affleck dies in a car accident, and then he becomes a goofy looking ghost with a sheet, like a Halloween ghost, and then it's just him like lurking in their house, and Rooney Mara's real sad about him being dead. And yeah, this one's a little slow in a way that kind of works. There's this great scene where Rooney Mara is in their house, and like their neighbor or friend or whatever has left like them a pie, and then there's this long unbroken take of Rooney Mara just eating the whole pie in real time in one long unbroken take, and it's like it's perfect. It says everything without saying anything. It's got that artsy 4x3 framing, so you know it's some A24 artsy bullshit. But I have to admit, it kind of works. Every shot is extremely meticulously planned out. Every frame is hyper specific. Everything just feels like extremely intentional. The blocking, the framing, the way the movie will just like hold on a scene or a beat for a little bit too long. In a way, it's kind of refreshing to see something that's a little bit different and fully committed to its premise. It sounds kind of goofy when you explain it, but because the movie takes its own concept so seriously, you get kind of drawn into it, and it weirdly kind of works. At least it did for me. The music is really good in this one. There's a few moments where the way that the audio mixes in and out of a song really like puts you in the exact headspace of the characters. And there's some kind of cool world building towards the end where we see that the story has like a larger scope than we first thought. I don't know why, but for some reason ghosts always be time traveling. It's true in this movie, and it's true in the Ghost House saga. David Lowery is a pretty interesting director. He also did The Green Knight, which I really liked, and he has another A24 joint coming out this year that I'm hoping to see. So stay tuned. Hey Joaquin, want to make another movie? Sure do. Can I play a pathetic loser who's like really insecure? You know it. And also, can I show my full cock and balls on screen? I mean, it doesn't really serve the story in any way, but I guess so. Eddington is written and directed by Ari Aster and stars Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, and like a bunch of other people. Follow-up to Beau is Afraid. This one goes into more of a like neo-Western political satire kind of vibe. It's set during the early months of the 2020 pandemic. Joaquin plays this sheriff of small town South North America, and he is just making bad decisions for the wrong reasons, and so is pretty much everyone else. This movie's commenting on everything. Conspiracy theorists, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement, the way that people gather around a cause, the way people are afraid in times of stress and unease, the way people get radicalized in certain directions when they feel out of control of a situation, so they latch on to conspiracy theories or blaming one particular group of people for whatever thing, and it's just a big old fucking mess. Even characters that occasionally do somewhat good things are usually doing them for the wrong
reasons or for selfish reasons. And this movie just likes having characters that are not good people. Ari Aster really seems to like pushing the limits of making people feel uncomfortable. And like, yeah, to go back to 2020, to how shitty everything was in the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, and just like live in that world for a little bit. It's like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do any of that? So what are my thoughts on this movie? I don't even know, but it's compelling. Did I like it? I don't know. It made me uncomfortable in many different ways. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on this one. I thought it was very well made, very well acted, very well directed. Ari Aster obviously knows his stuff and seems to really like making audiences uncomfortable, and I think there's something admirable in that, in reaching for like the toughest of subject matter to tackle. And this movie like truly touches on a little bit of everything going on in the world, both in 2020 and still now. Social media plays a huge role in this movie. Societies, particularly the United States society's obsession with like violence and guns is a big part of this one. You have a main character who's a cop in a movie set during the killing of George Floyd, and like he's the protagonist, and he is like not a good guy, which makes like this movie very uncomfortable to watch at certain points. And like, but at the same time you have like Pedro Pascal, who's on the surface seems like a more of a nice guy. He's the mayor of the town and sort of the oppositional force to Joaquin, but then he's also like working with tech companies to bring in a data center that's going to like pollute their water, and running a data center in the middle of the desert where you need extra water to even make those things run. And that's like that's another whole issue, is how many like fucking AI data centers are using all of the power and water, and also poisoning the water for the nearby communities that they're built in. And for what? So we can make Will Smith eat spaghetti slightly better. Everything sucks, the world is terrible, and there are no heroes. That's the lesson of this movie. It makes you feel icky. It's gross, but also very well made. So I don't know. Check it out maybe, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. That's this movie. I don't know. We'll see you next time.
What if podcasts were scary? Today on May 24, Undertone. Written and directed by Ian Tuason and starring Nina Kiri. This is an ultra low-budget horror movie filmed in Toronto, near where I live. It's about a lady doing a podcast where she listens to spooky things, and some spooky stuff happens. Maybe this is a single location feature, almost entirely set in one room, with this one lead actress talking on the phone with her podcast co-host, and it somehow manages to hold your attention for 90 minutes, or at least it did for me. I could see this movie really not working for a lot of people, because arguably nothing happens for most of it. But there is a lot of thematic undertones, get it? About motherhood and your relationship with your parents, religious drama, and how, yeah, it is a little weird that a lot of old-timey kids' songs have, like, dark undertones to them, like Ring Around the Rosies. That's about the plague or something? I don't remember. I'm sick today. Ultimately a very simple movie, but for me it works because I think the main lead performance was very good, and also the sound design. The sound design is excellent. This is a movie that relies on the sound design being good, and luckily it is. Highly recommend watching this with either like a good pair of headphones or a strong surround sound system. I liked this one. I don't know. It's very simple, but it also has some deeper themes going on. There was this really cool one-er towards the end that I liked. I always find it fascinating when a movie is
set in either one single location or like with a very simple premise, and manages to hold your attention for its runtime. It's the kind of movie that I would like to make in the future. Maybe not this specific premise, but something of this budget and structure. I think is cool. I thought it was pretty good. That's this one.
Kim Possible, So the Drama is directed by Christopher Borgli and stars Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. No wonder Batman doesn't like guns, am I right? So this one's about Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, and they're engaged. It's like the week before their wedding, and during a night of drinking out with their friends, they end up asking each other, what's the worst thing you've ever done? And turns out Zendaya did something that was maybe kind of bad. And what do you do then? Does that change how you feel about the person? Do you still love them? Is it weird that they didn't tell you about it? Maybe. And then that combined with all the normal stress of having to do a wedding, there's some drama. There's some drama that occurs. People don't always make the goodest choices, and that makes things worse. Yeah, I like this one. I thought it was pretty good. Robert Pattinson, I've really enjoyed a lot of his stuff in the last few years. He seems to really pick interesting projects, and he likes playing weird little freaks, and this one is no exception. His character's kind of a weird little guy, and I like that. And Zendaya's pretty good too. I like her when she's not in Spider-Man movies. Not that she's necessarily even bad in those. I just those aren't my favorite Spider-Man movies, and I find her character frustrating. But she's good in other stuff, and I think she's pretty good here. I don't want to say too much about this one without spoiling it, because it is still fairly new. But I liked it quite a bit. It's a fairly simple concept, but asks a lot of really interesting ideas about both the characters and the societies that they exist in. A lot of simple but cool editing choices where we see glimpses of the character's imagination to get an idea of like what they're thinking, and it's just a tight script with good performances that is maybe not what you first expect. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you a little bit uncomfortable in some scenes. It was pretty good. Go check it out. Maybe. I'm excited for the rest of the Zendaya Robert Pattinson trilogy coming out this year. I think that's right. It's the drama. It's got some drama in it. Drama's pretty good. Today on May 24, Opus. Good thing it's not called Magnum Opus, because it's not that good. Written and directed by Mark Anthony Green and stars Ayo Edebiri and John Malkovich. This one's about Ayo Edebiri. She's a writer at this news magazine. I think it's a magazine. She gets invited along with a handful of press people to John Malkovich has this weird compound in the middle of the desert, and he's a pop star from like the 90s or whatever that's gone on hiatus for many years and is revealing his latest album, and they're gonna get to see it firsthand. And some creepy things start happening at his place, and it's a cult. It's a creepy cult. It's really obvious that it's a creepy cult right from the get-go. And yeah, that's sort of part of the problem with this one. I think this one has some interesting ideas about like hero worship and celebrity, and people wanting to get close to celebrity for their own egos, or they think it's good for their career or whatever, and that people are like a little bit willing to forgive certain celebrities if they like their songs or whatever. I think there's something kind of interesting there. For me, the movie kind of falls apart, mostly just because it's really obvious what the I almost hesitate to call it a twist, that what's going on is that this is a creepy cult and they're killing people, because it's so fucking obvious because of how creepy everything is right from the get-go. And as charismatic as Ayo Edebiri is, and I think she is very good in the movie, you start to lose sympathy for her character when she doesn't just fucking leave. And yes, there's certain plot contrivances that make it difficult for her to leave, but also there's nothing like emotionally really tying her to stay. So fucking get out of there. It's creepy. You're gonna die. It feels a lot like this movie's trying to be kind of like Midsommar. But one of the things that made Midsommar so great was that it really plays with like peer pressure, and Florence Pugh's there with her boyfriend, and she wants to put on a smile and then play nice with his friends. So there's emotional, social reasons why she is going along with stuff that maybe she shouldn't initially. And they also cleverly reveal some of the dark, fucked up stuff early on in that one. So you know some weird shit is going on, but the cult itself is so like fascinating and almost hypnotic that the characters are at least intrigued enough to stick around to see what happens next. Where in this movie, I don't really feel that happens. I don't really feel that here. John Malkovich is great as a weird, creepy cult leader who's also this like eccentric pop star, and I think he has some really great scenes towards the end of the movie when, you know, people are getting killed or whatever, and he's very nonchalant about it. And in some of those moments, I think he's great, but I don't think there's anything about him here that would like the movie keeps telling you how charismatic he is and how he draws people in and stuff, and I'm like, I guess, but most of the time he's just like very fucking creepy, and he's good at being creepy, but like that wouldn't be like it should be obvious to anyone with eyes that like he's running a cult and probably killing people. So get out of there. Get Out is another one that this movie reminded me of a little bit in the way that it was not as good as that one. Where again, in that one, you have the protagonist visiting his girlfriend's family, so he's going to be more willing to put up with like feelings of uncomfortableness or anxiety because it's his girlfriend's family and he wants to, you know, make a good impression. And the movie does a good job of making her feel like she's on his side for the majority of the movie. And then when fucked up stuff starts happening, it feels like more of a reveal. Plus, the fucked up stuff is like interesting. That's another problem too, is like the movie could get away with more if it had like really cool kills and stuff. It doesn't. Just by having cool, memorable, fucked up kills, I feel like you can get away with a lot in horror movies just by bringing that extra entertainment factor. And this one doesn't really have that either. I'm sad to say, but I think this is our first dud of May 24. Unfortunately, this ain't it, Chief. And I feel almost kind of bad too, because there is some kind of interesting ideas, and Iowa Debris and John Malkovich are both so good and charismatic that you kind of want to keep watching because their performances are that good, but they're just not that interesting of characters. And you're just like, bitch, leave, when stuff is really obviously creepy, and they don't give her enough reason to stick around. Like, I guess she wants to maybe advance her career or something, but she seems weirdly put off by the whole thing in the beginning in the first place. So again, why are you sticking around? Anyways, I also really liked Amber Midthunder as one of the supporting cultists. I thought she was great and creepy. Always fun to see her. And the rest of the supporting cast is also pretty good. But yeah, just didn't quite hit the mark. There's better weird cult movies you can watch. Go watch Midsommar. Swiss Army Man. This is directed by the Daniels, who of course would go on to make Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it stars Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe. And I'm happy to say that much like Everything Everywhere All at Once, this is an extremely unique, delightfully strange, weird fucking movie. It's a nice night out today, and I'm just enjoying the great outdoors. So Paul Dano is stranded in the wilderness, and he comes across a dead body played by Daniel Radcliffe. And over the course of the movie, Daniel Radcliffe somehow comes back to life, and his corpse appears to have various different powers. Or maybe Paul Dano's going crazy and is imagining the whole thing. But it becomes this beautiful friendship between these two fucking weirdos in the woods, making weird shit, building their own outsider society, and finding a way to survive by relying on each other. It's a very intimate and small story, but it has vast, expansive themes and is willing to ask the hard questions about society, like, why can't you fart and masturbate in front of other people when everyone does it?
don't clip that. Paul Dano is one of those guys that sometimes I can't tell if he's actually a good actor or if he just has like a wide dynamic range. Like sometimes he'll talk really quiet and then he'll talk loud.
Completely. No shame. No!
And I don't know if he's actually good at acting or if that's just a thing that he does. But I think he's really good here. This is a strange movie and a strange role, and he's kind of a weird guy, so it kind of works. Daniel Radcliffe is also excellent. It's so nice to see him just doing all kinds of weird movies ever since Harry Potter. And this one he gets to do like lots of weird physical stuff because he's playing this weird corpse who's maybe come back to life or partly come back to life. And so there's large chunks of the movie where he can't move except for his face a little bit. And yeah, just endless creativity and strangeness. I'm so happy that they got this movie made somehow because it's such a weird story. The friendship between Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano is really sweet and grows in really interesting directions throughout the course of the movie. Early on, it's almost like a father-son kind of dynamic because Daniel Radcliffe reawakens with no memory. So Paul Dano's like trying to teach him about the world, and Daniel Radcliffe keeps asking him questions like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And Paul Dano's like, because people will think you're weird. And I know that's not a very good reason, but that's the way society is. But then they find kinship in their weirdness. They build their own worlds and their own society and their own community, and maybe it's even a little bit gay, but it's cool. What a strange movie. Raccoon shows up. In my mind, it's the same raccoon. That doesn't make any sense, but shut up. Apparently the Daniels are working on a new movie coming out at some point. And at first I was thinking, like, how do you possibly follow up Everything Everywhere? Since it was such a big hit, won a bunch of Oscars, like, where do you even go from there? But after seeing Swiss Army Man, I can see some thematic similarities. It's such a strange, unique movie that I'm very excited to see where they go next, because they seem to just be chock full of creativity and strange ideas and very unafraid of what other people think. And there's something delightful about that. High recommend for me. This was one I was very excited to check out, and it's exactly the weird kind of bullshit that I love from A24. And I can't wait to see what other weird shit the Daniels end up making.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. Come on inside, we've got everything you need. There's plenty to do, or you could just sit and read.
What if Saw was more Irish? Colin Farrell, do you want to play a game? This is The Killing of a Sacred Deer from the twisted mind of Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Colin Farrell, Nicole Kidman, and everyone's favorite weird little freak, Barry Keoghan. It's about Colin Farrell and his family. Colin Farrell is a doctor who maybe killed somebody while performing surgery because he was drunk. And he forms a strange friendship with that guy's son, played by Barry Keoghan, who then tells Colin Farrell that someone in his family must die. And an unexplained folklore, mythology type of curse. And what do you do then? It gets dark, it gets fucked up. Things go bad as modern medical science fails them, and these kids start dying. And Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman become more and more desperate and start making darker and darker choices. And the whole time I was watching this movie, I was like, where's the fucking deer? But you know, see, it's a metaphor. Sonny Sujic is in this one. He plays Atreus, or Boy, in the God of War games, and he's great. It's great to see him in other things. I forget he's in other stuff. outside of video games. And boy, does his relationship with Colin Farrell make Kratos look like the fucking dad of the year. The movie also has this like really stilted, awkward, kind of plastic dialogue to it, especially in like the first half or so before things really start to unravel. It's almost like the movie's like parodying a nice happy family where everyone is just like, oh, how was your day? Oh, my day was good, dear. How was your day? But there's no like emotion behind anything. Everything that they're saying, like, oh, I love you, Dad, I love you too, son, is on paper warm and kind, but because everything's delivered with just such stilted emotionlessness, it comes off like very strange and weird. And that is, I think, sort of part of the point as Barry Keoghan enters this family's lives, and he's sort of pointing out the hypocrisy in their putting on this like show of being a perfect happy family, but meanwhile there are darker issues going on underneath the surface. And we see that start to break through later on in the movie as the characters become more desperate and the cracks start to show. Colin Farrell has this great crash out scene in the kitchen where he's just like smashing everything. And it's a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, so it's got lots of crazy ultra wide shots where everything has like this hyper kind of strange look to it, but is, beautifully shot. Yeah, cool, dark, fucked up movie. Maybe don't watch this one if you don't like seeing bad things happen to children. But if you're cool with that, then this one gets a big old thumbs up. We Live in Time, from director John Crowley and starring Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, aka the less Canadian, hotter version of me. This one is a love story with themes of, you guessed it, time. Unfortunately, unlike About Time, there is no actual time travel in the movie, which does make it lose some points for me, but otherwise, it's very good. Basically, the main structure of the movie is broken into 3 timelines. One where Andrew and Florence first meet, one where they first get pregnant, and then one potentially towards the end of the relationship where Florence Pugh is diagnosed with cancer. And we cut between these 3 timelines, and as the movie unfolds, we learn more about the characters, we get more context for some of the later scenes. We see the ups and the downs, we see them fall in love and then struggle with life things and grow more in love as they struggle together, and it's beautiful and well told, and their performances are great. It's just a really fucking solid romantic drama. I don't have a lot of criticisms or hot takes here. And yes, the theme of time comes out many times throughout the movie. It's not for us to decide what the time is, but you have to decide what to do with the time that is given you. What do you do with the time that you have in your life? There are many times when time is you're out of control. There are many times when characters have to time things with a physical timer. Having a baby is a whole thing about time. It takes a certain amount of time to make a baby, but then the baby only comes out when it's time for the baby to come out, and you better be ready for that, and if not, you gotta make it work. What do you do with a potentially deadly cancer diagnosis? How do you spend the time fighting that, knowing that you might not make it? Knowing that you could do all the treatments and all the chemotherapies and everything, and you still might die anyways. How do you spend that time? What is the best way to do that? The movie raises all these questions and makes you think about your own life, and if you're spending your time well, or if you're just watching a bunch of A24 movies on YouTube for some reason. Who can say what is a good use of time? Surely not I. Yeah, I don't know. It's a perfect romantic drama. The performances are great. They have good chemistry. I don't know. It's actors you like. What more do you want? What more do you want, okay? It's a good movie. You get to see people fall in love, and isn't that beautiful? That's it. That's all I gotta say. What other movies should I watch? What other A24 joints should I see? Oh look at the time. I gotta go. Bye-bye. Mother Mary is written and directed by David Lowery and stars Anne Hathaway and Michaela Cole. There's definitely a non-zero chance that a certain percentage of people intending to go see Devil Wears Prada 2 will see this movie instead, and that thought makes me very happy. So, Anne Hathaway plays a pop star who goes by the name Mother Mary, and a few days before her big comeback tour, she panics and goes to visit her ex-girlfriend / ex dressmaker to try to convince her to make her a new dress. They never explicitly say that they used to date, but like, come on, grow up. And so what follows is kind of hard to describe. Most of the movie is just these two women talking about art and fashion and dressmaking and unraveling parts of their past relationship. We can tell there's a very intimate and complicated history between these two. The script never talks down to the audience. The characters just speak like how regular people who know each other and have history speak. They don't necessarily need to explain exactly what both of each other already know. But through context, you can piece together enough of how their relationship began and unfolded to understand the story and the emotion. It's just very well written, well directed, and well acted. Anne Hathaway is great, of course, but the standout for me was Michaela Cole. I'm less familiar with her, but she was incredible, so charismatic, brought so much life and intensity to every line of dialogue, brought a lot of humor to this movie too, as Anne Hathaway is kind of like panicking, having almost a crisis of faith type moment, so she's in a kind of dark place, and Michaela Cole just kind of like brings in elements of levity while also having very intense, bitter feelings towards Anne Hathaway because of how she hurt her. And as the movie progresses, the story starts to become a little darker, a little more strange, a little bit witchy. While trying to not give too much away, it becomes almost like a ghost story. We also get like some cool musical sequences where Anne Hathaway is performing some of her different songs. The music was worked on by Charlie XCX and other artists that I don't know super well, but I thought the music was all very good. This movie is a great counterpoint to Opus, a movie I talked about earlier that didn't really jive with me. Also about a musical artist that like is world renowned and famous and whatever, and then, you know, creepy things start happening. In that one, music was fine, but I don't really remember any of the songs too well, and nor did I have any real urge to like go revisit any of them. This movie, I really enjoyed the songs, especially the performance aspect of it, because there's all these elaborate dance numbers and set pieces and extremely elaborate costume design, which is kind of a character in and of itself in this movie. And yeah, I do kind of want to re-listen to the soundtrack. This is a movie that I feel like has a lot of stuff to it, and I kind of want to watch it again. It's definitely a movie I had to like sit with for a little bit and ruminate on. It's exactly my kind of shit. It's exactly the kind of vibe I'm looking for from A24, as something a little bit strange, a little bit different, but very intense, very intentional, very well shot, and a mixture of so many cool different elements, telling this grand emotional story while also being extremely intimate with its characters. Just fucking cool movie. I don't know. I don't have much else more to say. I really liked it. Highly recommend. I feel like this one might weirdly be a good double feature with Devil Wears Prada 2, just because there are like elements of fashion design and Anne Hathaway's there that are like theoretically similar, but tonally just a completely different experience. And I think that might actually be kind of fun. Great year for Anne Hathaway. She's got this, she's got Devil Wears Prada, Odyssey's coming out. 2 of the 4 trailers in front of this movie were other Anne Hathaway movies. so there you go. It's the year of the Hathaway. Yeah, really enjoyed this one. David Lowery, I talked about earlier with the Ghost Story, and yes, this one is also quite good and quite interesting and very cool. Really fascinating and cool director.
and very different types of movies that he's done as well, that don't really feel like anything else out there. Yeah, high recommend for me. This one was really cool. Eighth Grade, written and directed by Beau and starring Elsie Fisher. This one's about a young girl in, you guessed it, 8th grade. It's like the last week of grade 8 before their graduation. So she's like mentally prepping for high school and just trying to fucking fit in and survive. And yeah, I thought it was great. Beau is obviously a very talented comedian and songwriter. I like a lot of his songs. I think Inside is a masterpiece. And this was sort of his like directorial debut, and he's done some like other acting roles and stuff here and there as well. This dude perfectly captures exactly the feeling of being in middle school. Sadly, there were many moments in this movie that hit very close to home for me. Like, she's trying to have a YouTube channel and she's like recording videos of herself, and she's talking about how people always say that she's quiet, and but she's not actually quiet, and how do you even respond to that? And if you actually get to know her, she can actually be very talkative. And I was like, oh my god, this is exactly me. Why? You ever be introverted, and then someone asks you, why are you always so quiet? And then like there's no way to respond to that. Like, what do you, I don't know, man. Like, what do you mean? I have nothing to say at this particular moment. I'm introverted. What do you want from me? Just kind of a perfect distilled encapsulation of the feeling of being in middle school, which is already such a fucking weird time developmentally for a person. You're right in the midst of puberty. I know not every area has middle school, but I did, and it's just like you're like 12, 13, right in the peak of your hormones being all out of whack, and you're in this weird middle space between like elementary school and high school, where sometimes you're treated a bit more like an adult, but also you're very much still a child, and it's just like a weird time. Really loved all the dialogue in this movie. It was very just like perfectly paced and delivered, excellently performance. A lot of like stuttering and speaking over yourself and correcting yourself, and also does a very good job of like exploring the time that it came out and the time it takes place in, which is like mid to late 2010s. So we get lots of social media stuff, doom scrolling, the way that middle school kids view and use and interact with social media, how all of those things amplify the already extremely confusing and frustrating time that you're living in. Extremely well done, and ultimately a very relatable and powerful message of like, hey, middle school kind of sucks and it's stupid. I promise that you will get through it, and then you'll be on to new things, and those will have their own challenges, and those might also suck, but you can get through it as well. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's a good fucking movie. It puts a huge spotlight on exactly what it feels like to be in 8th grade, to be that age. You're just like completely enveloped in the headspace of this exact time and space for the character. Very, very good movie. Watch it if you want to be reminded of how awkward and terrible you were in middle school. Oh boy, we're really hitting the sad kid quota with this one. Aftersun is directed by Charlotte Wells, stars Paul Mescal and Frankie Corio. Paul Mescal's done quite a few bigger movies since this one, and this is one of the first things I've seen him in. He's great. He's really good. So this one's just kind of like a hangout movie. It's a father and daughter on a vacation somewhere in Europe. It's not really important. Most of the movie takes place at a hotel, and they're just kind of hanging out and vibing, and we just sort of learn a little bit more about the characters through their interactions. There's sort of this framing of the daughter is around 11 and Paul Mescal is turning 30,
And so he's sort of reflecting on his life when he was 11, his relationship with his father, or the lack thereof, that relationship. I don't know. It's a very simple, very intimate movie. This one came highly recommended from a Reddit post I made, and I think I can see why. It's very character driven. It's a very beautiful movie. The cinematography is gorgeous. There's a lot of shots with like reflections and mirrors and very specific perspectives. Anytime you got a shot with a mirror in it, you know that's good cinematography. There's this one full scene that I thought was absolutely gorgeous that plays out in one shot, one take. The daughter's playing around with this like camcorder, and she's plugged it into the like TV of the hotel room, and so we see like what she's pointing it at, and the shot of the movie is just the frame of, it's just basically the frame of the hotel room TV. And so we're seeing like what she's pointing it at and stuff, but you can also kind of see a little bit of the characters moving around and interacting in the background. And then at one point she like turns off the camera and we just see the reflection of them in the TV screen. The way the shot is perfectly still, but the characters' movement and the story being told with their like interactions and their dialogue gives it so much life and energy that it doesn't become like boring to look at. Gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. And I don't have that much else to say about this one. There's some stuff with the dad. He's kind of maybe not the greatest person, although you can tell he really loves his daughter and is really trying to be there for her. But he's also very flawed. He's spending all this money on a vacation. What does he do for a living? Unclear. And he's struggling with like drinking and probably depression. So there are moments where she's kind of neglected and on her own. A lot of those scenes, although very simple, are like very emotionally intense. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a very well-made movie. 2 characters, very few locations. Possibly they shot this with like a very small crew while on vacation and wrote it off as a tax credit thing. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were. And hey, I'm not knocking it. That's a smart way to use your money and telling a compelling story in the process. It's a pretty good movie. Check it out. Priscilla, written and directed by Sofia Coppola, who's, done a bunch of movies, some of them really good. Based on the memoir by Priscilla Presley, starring Kaylee Spaney as Priscilla, and Jacob Elordi as Elvis Presley. I didn't realize he was in this until I started watching it. I guess he just has to play like every tall, hot bad boy from literature and history. So this is a biopic from the perspective of Priscilla Presley and kind of goes through the journey of her relationship with Elvis. I knew very little about their relationship going into this movie, and I kind of just picked this one up because they had it at my local library, but I ended up really enjoying this one and finding it really fascinating and compelling. Both of these people are just fascinating historical individuals in the first place. Like Elvis is obviously one of the biggest pop stars of all time, and Priscilla Presley, still around today, done a ton of stuff outside of her relationship with Elvis. She was in the fucking Naked Gun movies, also a legend in her own right. And yeah, they had a interesting and complicated relationship. They met when she was like 14 and he was like already a famous pop star, which is fucking crazy. As this movie alleges, and it is based on Priscilla's memoir, so I have to assume that she's telling the truth about this, they kind of started dating while she was still in high school, but they never had sex until they were married, which is still weird. Like you could read that as being Elvis was trying to be gentlemanly or something, but still at best he definitely groomed her from when she was a child, which is pretty already kind of scummy. And there are scenes where they're like dating and she's still in high school and she's like living at his house and they're still not like sleeping together. Like they're sleeping in the same bed, but they're not having sex together. And like, honestly, that's in a way that feels almost weirder and more sinister, because if he just tried to have sex with a teenager, it's like, oh well, he's a creep, he's a pervert. Okay, I understand that. But if he's like kissing her and letting her stay at his house, but not having sex with her, it becomes like almost like a weird control thing where it's like, ugh, why is this making me more uncomfortable? And it almost like gives her a reason to stick around longer too, because like, okay, you gotta like think of it from her perspective, and the movie's told from her perspective, which makes the story really interesting, because like she's a teenager and Elvis is this famous pop star, and she starts dating him while she's like basically a normal girl in high school still. Like, that's crazy. Because there'll be scenes where they're like going out on dates and stuff, and then like the next day she has to like go back to school and do her math homework. Then a day later she's like flying out to Vegas with Elvis, the most famous pop star maybe of all time. It'd be like if I started dating Taylor Swift while I was still in high school. Like, that would be insane. And there are moments where you do kind of get swept up in the romance, as you would if you were a teenage girl at that time, meeting this like legendary figure who's super famous and his music's amazing or whatever, and like he does have a weird charisma charm to him, even though there are definitely elements of him that seem super shady. But there are scenes in the movie that I think are so interesting, because she keeps like coming back to him even though he's like not always there, but he's letting her stay at his house and stuff, and then like they'll like sleep in the same bed together, and she'll like try to initiate something, and he's like, no, we're not married, we can't do that. And she's like, then what the fuck am I doing here? Like, are you gonna fuck me or not? And it's like, yeah, girl, I kind of get it. Like, if you were a teenager girl in that position, like, you think that's where this is going, and you're like, yeah, that's like the goal here, is to get with the fucking super famous rich pop star. That's my goal here. Otherwise, what the fuck am I doing here? But yeah, then over the course of the movie, she starts to be a little bit more like, is this good? Should I be here? What am I doing? And he gets a little more controlling. He like is like, hey, you should wear this color. Hey, you should change your hair to look like this and stuff. She's super young, and it's like very sketchy. Like I sort of see the movie as her like kind of growing up, and over the course of their relationship, she sort of like becomes an adult and realizes like, I need to be my own person. I can't just be this like plaything doll that Elvis dresses me up as, even though, like, you know, living in a big house and having a staff that like cooks for me and stuff, some of that is appealing, but like I need to be my own person at a certain point. And so yeah, eventually by the end of the movie they're divorced. That's not really a spoiler. You can look it up. They're real people. But yeah, I ended up really finding this movie really, really fascinating. The way it was told, the way it like puts you in the headspace of a teenage girl who ends up dating super duper famous pop star, and the like weird dark undertones to everything that like you could read as like, oh well, you know, he didn't want to, you know, have sex with a teenager, so he couldn't have been that bad, but he did 100% groom her and like kiss her and date her and stuff. So like he was sleeping with other women also during this time, so that part of it didn't seem to be a problem for him. It just was with her specifically, but then it's weird. It's weird and strange. He's a weird, creepy guy, which actually I think is why Jacob Elordi is kind of a great casting choice for this role. He has a very strong physical presence. He's so fucking tall, which makes Kaylee Spaney look like so tiny and little by comparison. Elvis was already a tall guy, but Jacob Elordi is fucking even taller. A weird Frankenstein giant man. So like any scene where where you see them like standing next to each other, it's like, oh right, she's a child, she's a little baby girl, and he's a giant Frankenstein man. This is weird and creepy. And yeah, Kaylee Spaney is also great. She's been in a couple things that I've seen her since then, like the new Alien movie and something else that I saw her in that I thought she was very good in. I like her. I think she's really good. More of a subtle performance here, but she's doing a lot with very little. Like, she's sort of this quiet, introverted, small down teenage girl, but there's all these like subtle micro expressions underneath the surface. And yeah, it was very well told, very well directed. I do think it does suffer a little bit from the like biopic thing
of trying to condense a person's whole life or like many years into 2 hours or so. Towards like the back half of the movie, in the last like third or so, it's like, oh right, and then they have a kid, and then like the next scene it's like, and then the kid's 3 or 4 years old now, and then like 2 scenes later it's like, I think we should get divorced, and then like credits. Which is like fair enough. Like there's some just you have to find a way to like end the story of the movie somewhere, and this movie's about their relationship, so it makes sense to end it with when their relationship ended. But, you know, that's a lot of years we're fast forwarding through, especially since so much of the first half of the movie is like while she's in high school still, which is some of the most like fascinating stuff to me. And of course, you know, you can go read the book that, you know, I'm sure she goes into much more detail about their whole relationship, so that's fine, but just a little bit of like, oh, I guess we're rushing through things now towards the second half. Other than that, really good movie. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this one and how much I like wanted to learn more about these two people and their relationship after watching it. So yeah, good job. It's the other Elvis movie. Remember this one? They made this one also.
Mid-90s is written and directed by Jonah Hill and stars Sonny Suljic, our boy. Our favorite boy. The 90s are back in a big way this summer. So, Sonny Suljic is a kid in the mid-90s. This time, he has an abusive older brother instead of an abusive father. So, he's coming up in the world. He ends up befriending this group of skaters and getting into skateboarding because they have such a magnetic 90s tude. They don't give a thing about nothing. And yeah, it's just kind of a coming-of-age hangout flick. As someone who's a little bit of a skater myself, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. It kind of is a really great male bonding movie. The movie has a really organic feel to the way that the kids interact and talk to each other. It's very authentic to the time and the type of people you might find in the skate parks. Sometimes they'll say a few slurs. And if you've ever met a teenage boy, yep. But over the course of the movie, you can also see that there's kind of this unspoken love between all these boys. While they occasionally make very bad decisions, and sometimes maybe they're smoking and doing drugs. Sometimes maybe they're in situations that are a little bit too adult for them. But they also will show up for each other at the end of the day, and there's something kind of wholesome in that. There also ends up being some really great scenes between Sonny and his older brother, who's like a dick. But once Sonny realizes that, like, oh, he's actually not tough at all. He just can beat up me because I'm smaller than him. He stops being as willing to take his brother's bullshit. And they even have a few like quiet moments of understanding. At least that's kind of how I interpret it. We see Sonny playing PlayStation. We see Atreus playing PS1. That's kind of fun. I really liked this one. I thought it was really solid. I loved the aesthetic of the movie. It's shot a little bit to look like it was shot in the 90s. A little bit skating culture aesthetic, of course. Just did a great job of capturing the vibe of being a teenage boy and making some maybe not great decisions with your friends. Good movie.
Ne Zha 2. This is directed by Jowsey and is the highest grossing animated film of all time, grossing over $2 billion worldwide. This one's been on my radar for a while now, and I was very curious about it. Despite it being a very different kind of movie than what A24 typically picks up, I thought it would be interesting to talk about because it represents A24 branching out into other genres and markets, and I find that interesting. So A24 picked up this movie for the American, North American English release, and helped to produce the English dub, which is the version that I watched. And yeah, very, very different kind of movie than their typical like smaller indie stuff that just needs a little bit of extra help to get distributed.
This is a movie that was already extremely successful in China, and A24 was like, well, we wouldn't mind a little bit of that, a little slice of that pie, and brought this over to the West. So all of that background, I think, is kind of more interesting than the movie itself. Mostly just because, like, I'm not the target demographic for this particular movie. And in general, I tend to prefer watching the original language for movies rather than the English dubs, for a variety of reasons. A well-done English dub is, like, very hard to do successfully. And I'm jumping into Ne Zha 2 without having seen the first film, so there's a lot of various things working against this one in the way that I decided to watch it. It's also very long at almost 2.5 hours, which is pretty long for an animated movie, and I found the first half a little bit slow. There's a lot of like training montages and sequences that don't have like a huge amount of importance on the overall story. But once things started to pick up a little more in the second half and we started to learn a little bit more about like what the actual stakes were and who the real bad guys were of like what's going on, I started to get into it. And there's a lot of really crazy big anime style action that I thought was a lot of fun. Just like big epic battles with crazy anime powers being used in creative and just cool ways. So the movie definitely like grew on me over its runtime. Some of the animation is absolutely gorgeous, but then there are other parts where like a lot of the character designs, they have like this overly glossy like mobile game aesthetic to them. It doesn't really work for me. And yeah, I'm not a huge fan of English dubs. I think this one is mostly fine. They tried to bring in like a couple more well-known actors, like Michelle Yeoh is in this. I'm a huge fan of her. I think she's great. I don't think she's that good in this one. Like, she's fine, but it's doing an English dub of another language is like such a specific kind of voice acting that is incredibly hard to do well. And Michelle Yeoh, I think, has done some good voice acting roles, but this is like such a specific skill set that is extremely hard to do well. I don't know if I want to say she was miscast. I personally would have just preferred a veteran voice actor. Like, there are many veteran voice actors in other roles throughout this movie, and I think most of them are very good. Like, for example, Kari Walgreen plays like this evil dragon lady, and she's fucking awesome. I don't know if the A24 English dub is the best way to watch this movie. And there were other points too where I feel like the sound mixing was just like a little bit off. And maybe that's just the particular version I watched, but it just felt like there was like a weird lack of like ambient noise in scenes without music. Like, it's just totally silent in a weird, like they forgot to put sounds in kind of way. There was also some like juvenile toilet humor that didn't fully work for me. I'm not really a fart joke kind of guy unless it's Swiss Army Man and the absurdity that they commit to the bit comes around to it becoming funny again. But I get it. This is a mass market appeal animated movie, so you gotta have moments that appeal to kids. Although this does also have some like darker violence and action in it that leans a little more adult, which I also thought was cool. I wish that American animation was more willing to not pull its punches. Interesting movie, ends on a cliffhanger in a way that is like kind of hype, and maybe I'd be curious to watch Ne Zha 3. Didn't fully work for me overall. I felt it was a bit too long, but at the same time I did appreciate how the movie took its time to build out the world, and that made the stakes of everything, once it got to like some of the really epic action in the third act, hit harder because the movie like takes its time to build up to it. So I don't know. Maybe check this one out, especially if you're interested in animation, or in just if you're interested in movies outside of the normal Western market. It is cool to see and to learn a little bit about other cultures and other styles of art. And I thought it was interesting to talk about this one as something that feels very different from what A24 usually goes for in terms of distribution. That's this movie. Lamb is directed by Valdemar Johansson and stars Noomi Rapace. This is an Icelandic movie
So this couple are sheep farmers in Iceland somewhere, and there's sort of a reveal around a half-hour mark, but I have to talk about it because it's like the core of what the movie's about. Basically, this couple ends up adopting what appears to be some kind of strange lamb-person hybrid. At the start of the movie, Noomi Rapace is like delivering this baby lamb, and they seem to be surprised by it, and then like the first half hour of the movie they like take it into their home and they're taking care of it and stuff, and then about a half hour in we realize that this lamb is part human, or at least appears to be so. And what I really liked about this movie is that it left it totally up to interpretation. There's a few different ways you can interpret this one. I like that it didn't explain anything. Like, we find out later that this couple lost a child, so you can fully interpret this as like a story of this couple that adopts a baby lamb and starts raising it as if it were a human kid because they're grieving for their actual child that they lost, and they need something to latch on to, something to love, something to care for. You could read it more metaphorically, and maybe it's not actually a weird lamb person hybrid, but maybe it's just a regular ass lamb that they're like dressing in human clothes and pretending is a human. Eventually the husband's brother shows up and starts living with them for a bit, and he's like, what the hell is this? And we learn more about like the character dynamics between the three of them very organically over the course of the movie. There's also obviously like a religious allegory you could interpret here. Anything with lambs is going to have a Judeo-Christian undertone to it. Noomi Rapace's character is named Maria because of course it is. A child born in a manger under miraculous or at least mysterious circumstances, wrapped in swaddling clothes, adopted by one family but maybe kind of belongs to another. These details aren't accidental. I've seen this movie listed as a horror movie in some places. It's not, which is fine. A dark fantasy maybe would be a better term. I don't know. Genres are sort of made up for marketing, but like, don't watch this one thinking it's going to be scary, because it isn't. The special effects are also handled incredibly well and really smartly. There's obviously some CG shots of this lamb-human hybrid creature, but a lot of the time they either just manage to like cut away from it or show it from the head up, which allows you to you can just use a regular lamb at that point. So, very smart way to use special effects on a smaller budget. And the effects that are in the movie look really, really good. I really love this one. I think I really appreciated how seriously it committed to its kind of strange and absurd premise and just played it like a completely straight drama. I also really love that they leave it open to interpretation. You can read it more metaphorically, you can read it more supernaturally, and it still works on both levels. Plus, also, you get to shoot in Iceland, and you just get all these beautiful shots of the Icelandic landscape, but that also gives this movie a very surreal atmosphere. It's up in Viking land, so it's sunny all day long. The characters go to bed when it's still light out, so everything just feels a little bit off, and that kind of adds to the eerie nature of the film. This one was great. I loved it. I thought it was perfect. This is exactly my kind of weird A24 cup of tea. Big woolly thumbs up for me.
It Comes at Night is directed by Trey Edward Schultz and stars Joel, I guess this means we're stepbrothers, Eddington. Spooky horror, spooky, the woods are scary. So the movie kind of drops you into what appears to be a post-apocalyptic type world. We never get a full explanation of like what exactly happened to society or how much of society remains, if any. We're mostly just following Joel Eddington and his wife and his son, and they're in a cabin in the woods, and there appears to be some kind of virus that has wiped out some amount of society. And the main conflict of the movie kicks off when a mysterious stranger comes knocking on their door. And he has a family of his own he's trying to take care of, and Joel Eddington reluctantly adopts this new group into their home. The movie's just like really, really simple, really contained. There's a lot of scenes where we don't see the danger, which sort of adds to this level of tension. What is scary about the woods? There could be something out there. There could be an animal. There could be other people. But you don't know for sure. What's scary about the night? It's dark. It's hard to see things. There could be something out there, but you don't know for sure. There's something kind of primal about this movie. It taps into sort of your primal instincts and fears and dreams. Things get darker as paranoia takes over and you don't know if you can trust your neighbor. Man, imagine a world where everything's fucked and a virus has ravaged the world and everyone is more irritable and nobody feels like they can trust each other anymore. What a horrible time that would be. Life sure sucks and then you die. Fairly simple movie, but taps into something a little bit primal and a little bit universal. And I like the approach to world building, or almost a lack thereof, where we're just kind of dropped into it with very little explanation. You just kind of get a sense of the vibe of this world from how the characters act and react to situation. It's dark, it's sad, it's depressing. What do you do in a terrible world where only hard choices are available? If you want to get sad, maybe check this out. And the award for worst movie to watch with your parents goes to Babygirl, written and directed by Helena Rajan and starring Nicole Kidman. Take a drink every time I end up watching a movie with a poster that looks like this. So this one's a sexy thriller. Nicole Kidman's the big business girl boss lady of this robotics tech company, and she ends up having an affair with this young, hot intern guy. Because apparently her husband, Antonio Banderas, is not doing it for her. I don't know how that could be possible. He's doing it for me, but apparently he's not enough. So yeah, the movie's playing with like power dynamics, some kinky fetish stuff. There's some kind of interesting power dynamics because like she's his boss, but then he's like, I could get you fired by reporting you or whatever. They start having an affair and then you're like, all right, and then what happens? And then they sneak around and have sex. There's 2 hours of that, and sure. This is a little bit outside of my typical genre, and overall I think it's fine. I don't know. It didn't do that much for me, I guess. I guess I wanted like more to happen, because like it's 2 hours and like they have an affair and it's sexy and they have sex. And that's the movie. I guess I'm like trying to figure out like what was the point of everything? Like what was I supposed to learn? I don't know. There's some kind of goofy stuff also, like early on. There's this like dog that's really angry and barking, and then the sexy intern guy like calms down the dog, and Nicole Kidman looks at it like, oh, I'm a wild animal sexually, and he's gonna tame me, and it's like kind of goofy. But there's some like songs that play that like the lyrics match up with what's happening, and you're like, ooh, this one's fine. Nicole Kidman's good. I like that she's trying some darker, different kind of roles recently, and been involved in various A24 stuff, which is kind of fun. There's some kind of interesting ideas in this one, but after a while, I was kind of just like waiting for more to happen in it. So I don't know. It's fine. Watch it if you want, or don't. I'm realizing that 24 movies is kind of a lot of movies. Saint Maud is directed by Rose Glass and stars Morfydd Clark. So this one is about a nurse named Maud who is recently converted to Catholicism, and she's taking care of this older woman who's confined to a wheelchair and is dying. She feels that she has been called by God to save this woman's soul. So we get a Catholic horror, a spooky Christian religion bad,
religion scary kind of movie. Rose Glass also directed Love Lies Bleeding, which I think I liked. And I feel similarly about this one. It took me a minute to kind of warm up to it. I had to kind of sit with some of its themes and what it was trying to say, and some of the directions it goes with its characters. It doesn't spell everything out for you. You kind of have to do some thinking. And some interpretation. Religion and Christianity specifically have a kind of interesting relationship with horror. You'd think that the scary bad movies would be anti-Christian, but actually that's not the case at all. Slasher movies often have like the teens that are behaving sinfully and having sex outside of marriage get punished. The Exorcist is very Catholic, and the priests are heroic and they save a little kid. The Conjuring movies are like super Christian. So this movie kind of is taking a different approach, almost deconstructing Christian Catholic horror and interpreting it in a new way. This movie kind of feels like the director is almost like deconstructing their own relationship with God or religion, and what a messy and complicated relationship that is. Maud is a very complicated and flawed protagonist, and aren't we all in some way? And the way that she interprets her faith and what she feels she's been called to do, there's some uh-oh moments in there for sure, where it's like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's a good idea. But I also don't think the movie is like anti-religious flat out, because it also shows that there is benefit, or at least for Maud, at least for the character of Maud in this movie, to having faith. It gives her a feeling of purpose and direction, and a feeling that there is meaning to everything that's happening, that there's more to life than just suffering. But it also plays with this very Catholic idea that suffering is important and almost equated to holiness, which, like, I don't think those two things are necessarily the same. At the same time, when there are moments in the movie where Maud is like kind of losing her faith a little bit, she becomes very lost and starts behaving extremely self-destructively. Without religion or some strong sense of community, it's extremely easy to feel just like totally lonely and lost. I get that. I felt that before. But you can't be lonely if God is always with you, right? This movie, much like religion, is complicated. It's messy. There aren't always easy answers, and there's more than one way to interpret it. At first, I thought this movie was kind of going in more like, ooh, spooky nun, scary. Ooh, religious people are a little bit crazy. But I think there's more to it than that. I think it's a little more nuanced. So yeah, it took me a minute to warm up to this one, but I think I kind of like it. Or at least I find it interesting. It's at least a movie worthy of discussion, which in my book is a win. The worst thing a movie can be is boring and uninteresting, and this movie is not that. So gets a pass for me. I don't know. Check it out and form your own opinion. But that's it for me today. I'm tired, boss.
Materialists is directed by Celine Song. She also did Past Lives from a couple years ago, which I really enjoyed. That one was about a woman who has to choose between her two boyfriends. And this one is about Dakota Johnson, who has to choose between her two boyfriends, Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal. There's a little more to it than that. So Madam Web plays a matchmaker. She works at this expensive matchmaking company who sets people up on dates and tries to match people with their future love of their lives. But she's very clinical, very numbers driven. What are people's heights? How much do they make? All of the material aspects of them. She ends up meeting Pedro Pascal, who fits all of the good numbers. He's rich, he's tall, he looks like Pedro Pascal, and starts going out with him. Maybe he mathematically he seems like a pretty good choice. But then also she's comes reacquainted with her ex-boyfriend Chris Evans, who's looks like Chris Evans, so he looks, that's a plus. But he's poor, he's kind of a fuck up, doesn't necessarily have a steady career, has a shitty apartment, etc. What do? Do you go with the guy that's rich and looks like Pedro Pascal, or do you go with the guy that maybe you actually love? how do you find, what is there more to love than business decisions, or is there something unquantifiable about it? I did enjoy this one. I'm making it maybe sound worse than it is. I think all three lead performances are really strong. I think the writing and directing is good. It's a good movie. I think it brings in some interesting concepts about, like, what is marriage? Because for centuries, marriage has been a business decision, and there are many financial reasons that people get married. As Madam Web puts it, finding someone who wants to marry you is sometimes about just feeling valued. And there's something kind of interesting in looking at it from such an analytical angle. Then you have the question of love, of course, which is unquantifiable. There is some interesting ideas to this one. In terms of Celine Song's direction, I think I preferred Past Lives a lot more. That one just had, like, such specifics with its characters that made them feel extremely real, and a more interesting central question. And this one's like a slightly better than average normal romance movie, which is still good. Like, it's still a good movie. Do you want to see hot people fall in love? I mean, what's not to like about that? Either way, I'm glad Celine Song is able to make movies, and I, like many directors working with A24, I'm always excited to see what they do next. Yeah, it's a pretty good romance movie. Check it out if you like romance, I guess.
Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is directed by Dan Fleischer Camp. I did not have a shell in my apartment, so we're going with a Tahoe. This one's about a young shell named Marcel who lives in an Airbnb with his grandmother, and it's shot in like a mockumentary kind of way, using stop motion animation and various other techniques, I assume. There's some live action stuff as well. After a while, I completely stopped, like, trying to figure out how they made it, and just completely got absorbed in the world and the story. I just believed Marcel was a real thing. Yeah, this movie's pretty much perfect. Incredibly charming, incredibly gorgeous looking characters and animation. Again, I don't know how they did it, and I almost don't want to know, because I just want to believe these are real characters that exist. There's a whole story about Marcel looking for his family. He used to have a whole family and community. They were mysteriously taken, and so part of the story becomes about him trying to find them, and it's surprisingly emotionally complex. There's a lot of stuff about, like, family and community. He's living with his grandmother, who's, like, getting a little bit older. Her memory's not as good as it used to be. Her mobility starting to fade. Yeah, it's just a really beautiful story about family and community and friendship. This amateur documentary filmmaker starts living with Marcel and starts making short movies about him and putting them online, and some of them end up doing pretty good numbers. But having an audience is not the same as having a community. I don't know what else to say. It's a beautiful story. It's great, incredible filmmaking. It's perfect little movie. Go watch it. Go watch it, and feel better about humanity. Art. It's art. Art exists. You can enjoy it. That's the end of this episode. We're almost at the end of May 24. We got one more day, which means we gotta I think we gotta take it all the way back to the beginning. It's the last day of May 24, so I wanted to take us back all the way to beginning to one of, if not the first release from A24, Spring Breakers. Directed by Harmony Korine, stars Vanessa Hudgens, Selena Gomez, the director's wife, a fourth girl, and James Franco. This one's about 4 college girls who are indistinguishable from each other, apart from Selena Gomez, who plays Faith, because she's the Christian one. And they go into spring break. It's Ferris Bueller 2, Spring Break. They go to spring break and they get into some shenanigans. Eventually they meet up with James Franco, who is this trashy white rapper who's also, like, into drugs and guns and doing crime. Basically trying to play Grand Theft Auto 6 IRL. His character's name is Alien. and he's just like the biggest scumbag you've ever met. He bails them out of jail after they party a little too hardy, and maybe they get into a little bit of crime. Kind of crazy that you can just bail some random people out of jail if you have the money. It's almost like the prison system is designed specifically to punish poor people. Anyway, so I wanted to look at this one because I had heard a lot about it when it first came out. It came out back in 2012, so this was like right at the start of A24 becoming a company. And it was talked about a lot at the time for one, having a James Franco performance that is kind of very different from his usual stuff, playing just like the most scumbag guy ever. And it's kind of very uncomfortable because, one, real-life James Franco is also kind of a scumbag, and two, it just feels like a real guy. Either you've met a person like kind of like this, or at the very least, like, they exist out there. At the same time, you have Disney stars like Vanessa Hudgens and Selena Gomez breaking out into a more adult role for a more adult film. Those are Disney actors, but this movie has boobies in it. How can be? Before, Selena Gomez went to go hang out with your parents' favorite comedians, and Vanessa Hudgens went on to star in a bunch of straight-to-Netflix Christmas movies. They were in this. The director of this film mostly does music videos, and boy does it show. A lot of sequences are very montagey, very music driven. There's a lot of style over substance, but for this movie it kind of works. It gives the whole thing this very dreamlike quality where sometimes the scenes are not necessarily always edited in exactly chronological order, and there's a lot of crazy bright colors and lights. I feel like this movie specifically kind of popularized the very A24 like neon lighting look, and I think in this one the crazy bright saturated colors works for the tone of the film. Everything is heightened. It's spring break where everyone's doing drugs and drinking and partying to the max. Everything about this movie is just like crazy bright and colorful and in your face, and that's kind of the point. While I enjoyed this one, I think there's some really cool stylistic stuff. There's one sequence that I think is excellent where, in order to get the money to actually be able to travel to spring break, three of the girls that aren't Selena Gomez end up robbing this store, and there's this really cool oneer of the getaway driver driving around from one end of the store to the other as we see through the windows the other two like robbing the place. It's a really great sequence, and it's all like one shot. It looks super cool, and there's some other shots and sequences throughout the movie that look really nice, which I always appreciate. But overall, I think I wanted a little more like personality or character from the main girls who are our protagonists that we're following. Selena Gomez gets a little bit of development, but the other three characters are kind of interchangeable, and I would have liked to see just a little something more from them. Like, I could never really tell if they were just partying and drinking and doing drugs for the fun of it, or for the, like, because there's something darker underneath that they're trying to escape. Like, that seems to be the implication, but we never learn, like, what that is, if there is something more specific to why they're doing what they're doing. And maybe there isn't. Maybe they're supposed to be shallow and that's like the point. I don't know. But like, I don't know. I wanted just like something more that humanizes them a little bit, so it's not just like, hey, look, hot young women doing drugs and partying for 90 minutes. Is this movie messy and problematic and has a lot of male gazy type stuff in it? Yes. Is it also like kind of confronting that and maybe criticizing it a little bit? Possibly. Do characters in movies have to behave good and make good decisions? No, not necessarily. Has this movie aged super duper well? I don't know. That's for you to decide. But I did find this movie very interesting, and it does kind of hit on
a lot of the tropes that you see in a lot of other A24 movies. Smaller, intimate stories about just a couple characters. Some element of poverty or crime being a theme. Super trashy characters that feel like real people you might meet somewhere. The crazy neon lighting. A bit of an improvisational tone to the characters and story. All this and more in one of the first A24 movies, Spring Breakers. Check it out if you want to remember what an edgy movie from 2012 looked like. But that's it for May 24. Thank you for watching. If you watched any of the movies or watched any of my videos, here's my ranking if I end up doing one. Look at that. That's the ranking. And that's it. If you're new, go back and look. I got 24 whole videos reviewing A24 movies from throughout the month. It's been fun dirty. What did I learn? A24 mostly puts out pretty good movies.
But you left me. And now I walk this wilderness alone. The Romans lit fires in the skulls of their dead so they might forget their past. Without you, I am nothing. 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 Wherever I look, I'm reminded our relationship is dead.
Bonus May 24 video. Backrooms is directed by Kane Parsons based on his short film of the same name and also the larger Backrooms creepypasta mythology. It stars Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renate Reinsve. So the movie's about Chiwetel Ejiofor. He is a failed architect that owns a failing furniture store called Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire. So already there's stuff that doesn't quite make sense. Is he a pirate or part of the Ottoman Empire? And he finds a mysterious doorway in the basement of his furniture store into the back rooms. Mysterious, strange, twisting hallways of subliminal spaces that seem to go nowhere. This movie I was very curious about for a few reasons. Based on a YouTube short film from a young filmmaker who A24 just basically gave $1 million to do whatever he wanted. And apparently they even built this really elaborate set, so most of the stuff is, I'm sure there's VFX as well, but a lot of the stuff does seem to be just a real set that they built that's just this insane maze, and apparently like crew members would get lost while they were working on the movie and stuff. The larger Backrooms like creepypasta mythology I'm less familiar with. I've seen the short that Kane Parsons did and I thought it was very good. And there is something intriguing about just like weird liminal spaces. This original post has like this very strange surreal quality to it that's a little bit haunting, and this movie takes some of those concepts and just fucking runs with them. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of not understanding something, the obsession of trying to get into the lore or the reason why something exists, but there doesn't seem to be any clear answers. Some incredible performances from both lead actors. Chiwetel is obviously great. The female lead who plays like his therapist is also excellent. It gets like really fucking weird towards the third act, which I really enjoyed. There's also this whole found footage angle that they play with. There's a couple of really elaborate long takes in like a found footage style that are executed extremely well. Like, I'm sure there's some hidden cuts in there somewhere, but like they did a very good job of hiding them. And just the deeper they go into the back rooms, the weirder things get, the less things make sense, the stranger things appear. I'm currently working on a horror script that I hope to one day talk about more, but this movie did a couple things that are like ideas I've had, except way better. So that pissed me off a little bit, but in a good way. Yeah, check this movie out. There's nothing else quite like it. And it's, yeah, also you get some great performances, very incredible filmmaking, and yes, we will be watching Kane Parsons' career with great interest. that's it for May 24. Go watch some of the other videos I did. Bye-bye.